Ambassador Kekstari's gill slits fluttered nervously as she entered the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Trade Consortium. The emergency session had drawn representatives from across 17 star systems, all gathering to discuss the recent incidents in the Outer Rim territories. The hall buzzed with anxious conversations in dozens of languages, translation matrices working overtime to process the diplomatic chaos. But as Kekstari's compound eyes swept across the assembled delegates, all that nervous energy seemed to condense into a single point of absolute silence in the back corner of the chamber. There, sitting alone at a small table designed for minor planetary representatives, was Dr. Elena Vasquez. Human, Earth's sole delegate to the consortium. She wasn't doing anything threatening. She sat perfectly still, hands folded, dark eyes calmly observing the proceedings. Her appearance was unremarkable by human standards, middle-aged, wearing a simple black diplomatic uniform, with graying hair pulled back in a professional style. To most species, humans looked almost fragile with their soft skin and lack of natural weapons. But Elena Vasquez was the reason the Kethmaran Defense Fleet had been mobilized. She was why the crystalline hegemony had locked down their borders. She was why Ambassador Kekstari's own government had issued code black security protocols for this meeting. "The human is here," Councillor Threx whispered through his breathing apparatus, his massive frame actually trembling. The representative from Titan Prime, a world where gravity was 3 times Earth normal, and the atmosphere could dissolve most organic matter, was afraid of a single human woman. Kekstari remembered the first report. It had come from the mining world of Exirion 7, where corporate disputes were usually handled through standard legal channels. The Pharyngi Mining Consortium had been exploiting local labor, operating outside galactic worker protection laws. Standard procedure would have involved filing complaints, waiting for arbitration, maybe imposing some trade sanctions. Dr. Vasquez had visited Xirion 7 for exactly 4 hours. When she left, the Pharyngi Consortium had not only withdrawn from the planet, but had paid reparations to every worker and their families going back 7 generations. The corporate executives had personally delivered the payments, and several had been seen weeping openly. No one knew what she had said to them. "Perhaps we should begin the proceedings," announced Supreme Chancellor Vorth, his crystalline form catching the chamber's light in nervous refractions. "The emergency session of the Galactic Trade Consortium is now in." Before we begin, came a quiet voice from the back of the room. Dr. Vasquez hadn't raised her voice, but somehow her words carried clearly through the vast chamber. "I'd like to understand why this emergency session was called." Every eye stalk, optical sensor, and compound eye turned toward her. The silence was so complete that the chamber's life support systems seemed unnaturally loud. Chancellor Vorth's crystalline structure flickered through several colors, the Zephyrian equivalent of stammering. "Well, Dr. Vasquez, there have been incidents involving human diplomatic interventions that some members find concerning." "Concerning," Dr. Vasquez repeated, as if tasting the word. "Councillor Threx, you raised the initial complaint. Would you care to elaborate?" The massive being from Titan Prime seemed to shrink in his chair. "The incident on Gamma Hydari. Your negotiation with the slave traders." Kekstari shuddered. She'd read that report too. Gamma Hydari had hosted the largest illegal sentient trafficking operation in 3 sectors. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were being bought and sold like livestock. The operation was protected by corrupt officials, military contractors, and had been considered untouchable for decades. Dr. Vasquez had requested a single meeting with the operation's leadership. 24 hours later, every slave had been freed. Every trafficker had surrendered to authorities, and the operation's financial networks had collapsed completely. The freed slaves had been provided with transportation home and financial compensation. Several former traffickers had reportedly started operating shelters for trafficking victims. "I had a conversation," Dr. Vasquez said simply. "They saw the wisdom of changing their business model." Wisdom, Counselor Zektal hissed through his translator. "Our intelligence reports suggest you spoke to them for exactly 17 minutes. 17 minutes to dismantle a criminal empire that had survived for centuries." Dr. Vasquez tilted her head slightly. "Sometimes 17 minutes is sufficient." Ambassador Kekstari found herself speaking before she realized it. "Dr. Vasquez, what exactly do you say to these people? Our psychologists have analyzed the aftermath of your interventions. Hardened criminals, corrupt officials, corporate executives, they don't just comply with your requests, they seem genuinely convinced that your way is the only moral path forward." For the first time, Dr. Vasquez smiled. It was a small, almost gentle expression, but something about it made Kekstari's survival instincts scream warnings. "I tell them the truth," Dr. Vasquez said. "I explain what humans do to people who hurt innocents. I describe our history, our wars, our justice systems, our capacity for revenge when properly motivated. I outline the mathematical certainty that Earth has contingency plans for every possible threat, including ones we haven't met yet." The chamber's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "But mostly," she continued, "I explain what we do to protect the things we care about. Humans have a saying, 'Mess with the bull, get the horns.' But we have another saying that's more relevant, 'Touch our friends, and we will end you so completely that the universe will forget you ever existed." Counselor Threx made a sound that might have been whimpering. "The consciousness eraser technology. The reports are true. Humans have weapons that can delete existence itself." Dr. Vasquez's expression didn't change. "We prefer diplomacy. It's cleaner." Supreme Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form had shifted to deep red, the color of extreme agitation. "Dr. Vasquez, the purpose of this emergency session was to discuss placing limitations on human diplomatic authority. Some members feel that your methods constitute an unfair advantage in trade negotiations." "I see." Dr. Vasquez stood slowly, her movement deliberate and controlled. Despite her modest stature, every being in the chamber seemed to recoil slightly. "Counselor Threx, when you discovered that corporate executives on your homeworld were selling contaminated medicine to refugee camps, what was your government's response?" Threx's massive frame shuddered. "How did we filed protests with the appropriate regulatory bodies. Standard diplomatic procedure." "And how long did that process take?" 18 months. "But that's normal for—" 18 months, Dr. Vasquez repeated. 18 months while children died from contaminated medicine. Children who could have been saved if someone had simply walked into a boardroom and explained to those executives why their behavior was unacceptable. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with each delegate in turn. "You want to limit human diplomatic authority because we're too effective, because we solve problems in days that your systems take years to address, because we prioritize results over procedure." Ambassador Kekstari felt compelled to respond. "Dr. Vasquez, surely you understand our concerns. Your methods, while effective, seem to rely on intimidation." "Intimidation assumes an intent to harm," Dr. Vasquez replied. "I never threaten anyone. I simply ensure they understand the full context of their situation. Knowledge is not intimidation, it's education." She gathered her minimal paperwork and moved toward the chamber's exit. "The vote on limiting human diplomatic authority is scheduled for next week. You're welcome to proceed as you see fit." As she reached the door, she paused and turned back. "Oh, and, Counselor Zektal, your moon base mining operation has been using child labor for the past 3 years. I'll be scheduling a conversation with your oversight board next Tuesday at 14:00 0 standard time. I trust that won't be a problem. The insectoid delegate's mandibles clacked in terror. Dr. Vasquez smiled that small, gentle smile again. Excellent. I do so enjoy productive diplomatic exchanges. After she left, the chamber remained silent for several minutes. Finally, Chancellor Vorth spoke, all in favor of maintaining current human diplomatic authority. The vote was unanimous.